3, 2, 1. Hi everyone, good evening from Montreal Conference Center here at the Presbyterian Association of Musicians 2023 Worship and Music Conference with the theme of Thirst No More. And this is a theme which is so powerful and so profound in the Bible. And today we have an honor that we met various scholars and leaders at the conference, and one of them is our own Dr. Bill Brown from Columbia Theological Seminary, a profound scholar on Old Testament, and the main interest for me as a student of the book of Psalms is he is a scholar of Psalms, and upcoming book is a new commentary on Psalms, Zabur. Tehillim is coming, so we are so excited about that. So Dr. Bill, first of all, would you please introduce yourself and your interest in Old Testament, and what brought you to become a professor and a teacher of Old Testament, and then we will talk about more particularly on the Psalms.
Thank you, Eric. It's good to meet you. And I've been teaching the Old Testament for almost 35 years now. And I have a deep love for the Old Testament, in part because when I started seminary, I learned Hebrew, and I fell in love with the language of Hebrew. And I love the earthiness and the sort of the ancient context of the Old Testament, knowing a bit of the ancient Near East cultures and how those cultures influenced ancient Israelite religion. And I just love the sort of the honest to God speech of the Psalms and the inclusiveness of voices within the Old Testament as well. The fact that we have different accounts of creation, different accounts of the Exodus. There's a diversity to Scripture that I really appreciate, and I love to engage in dialogically.
Wonderful. And we all know that worship is a dialogue, and it's a dialogical nature, and book of Psalm gives us a language, actually, not only a language but also emotions to engage at that one, and with the shared interest with each other. I'm an Old Testament student, he's a scholar, and Tehillim, which I started a school, Tehillim School of Church Music and Worship, was based on inspiration from the book of Psalm. Living in Pakistan, and I realized that what is the core book in the Pakistani context where church is marginalized, persecuted, and what is the scriptural grounding. And I realized that during exile, book of Psalm kept Jewish nation their identity and their connection with God, and that is where inspired me book of Psalms. And now here we are. So you were sharing about your upcoming book, new commentary.
Yes.
And we have already myriads of resources on a Psalms commentary. We have Movenkill, and we have Grimkill, we have Westermeyer, we have another scholar, what's it?
Walter Brueggemann.
Walter Brueggemann, here you go. Yes. And so it's already full. So what's different you are bringing, and especially Eugene Peterson's recently book of Psalm using a new contemporary language translation.
Yes.
So what's the new perspective you are bringing?
Yeah, thank you, Eric. That's a great question, because sometimes I wonder, what can I bring that is new to the Psalms, given so many other commentaries and scholars who have worked on the Psalms. Let me first begin by saying what I really appreciate about the Psalms. What appeals to me about the Psalms, in part, is their inclusive embrace of different voices. So in the Psalms, we hear of the voice of the king. We also hear the voice of the poor and needy, and everyone in between. The voice of the priest, the voice of God, the voice of those who are oppressed, and those who are perhaps the oppressors as well, all brought together in praise and prayer and lament and instruction for the community as a whole. That's one thing that really appeals to me in the Psalms, and also this diverse character of God, the God of the poor and needy, the God of the king, the God of creation, the God of Torah, the God who is addressed in lament, the God who is the object of praise. So God is all of that in the Psalms. and the fact that the Psalms cover such a great sweeping breadth of history of ancient Israel. So Psalms of creation, Psalms that talk about the Exodus, Psalms that talk about Abraham, Psalms that talk about the wandering Israelites, the Psalms of Torah, the Psalms that talk about the Davidic kingdom and the Messianic hope. The Psalms cover the sweep of ancient Israelite history, just like the Pentateuch and the Deuteronomic history did. And so the vast coverage of history that the Psalms cover is also, for me, quite striking. Also, the imagery and metaphor of the Psalms. Psalm 1, the trees planted by streams of water. Psalm 19, the heavens are telling the glory of God, and the sun bursting out from his wedding canopy. The images of light that are associated with God. So a vast array of images and metaphors, all embedded in this evocative poetry that appeals to the senses, sight, certainly to the sound, since Psalms were meant to be sung and musically accompanied. Taste and see that the Lord is good. So the sense of taste as well. So there's just an all-embraciveness to the Psalms that just have captivated me over the years. So what I hope to bring new in my own commentary on the Psalms is the dialogical nature of the Psalms. How the Psalms that recount Israel's history are in dialogue with how history is recounted in Joshua, the Second Kings. The Psalms of creation, like Psalm 104 and Psalm 8, and how they engage in dialogue with, say, Genesis 1 and 2.
Well, we can carry on because he has a lot to share anyway. So I have to stop him. Otherwise, we will carry on listening. Now, so you were saying that the historical perspective and engaging with the dialogic nature of the Psalms.
Yes.
So are you keeping and putting your lens expository, like you're going psalm by psalm, verse by verse, or are you taking it thematically?
Yeah, great question. So the genre of this commentary, which is the Old Testament Library Commentary Series, that goes psalm by psalm in sequence and almost verse by verse. So it's a very traditional commentary series in that regard. But I'm also adding to that what I call the Psalm 19 in context. So I'm looking at how Psalm 19 engages imagery of God, of light, elsewhere in the Bible, and how Psalm 19 is engaged in dialogue with previous Psalms and subsequent Psalms. So how Psalm 19 engages Psalm 18, how it engages Psalm 20. And so my image here is that once the psalmists give praise and prayer to God, what do they say to each other after they've had their worship of God? And so it's like having all the psalmists, all 150 psalms, seated around a large table over a meal. After they have given praise and prayer to God, what would they say to each other among neighboring psalms, and maybe across the table as well? What would Psalm 8 have to say about Psalm 144? Both of those psalms ask the question, why are you so mindful of us, O God? And both pose that question, but with different answers. Humanity created with glory and honor, just a little less than the gods. Or in Psalm 104, humanity is just a breath, a passing shadow.
So, because you talk about the context, there is no text without context.
Exactly.
And you are writing from a Western context,
Sure.
Western context,
Yeah.
Western Hemisphere. So there are your contemporaries. Where Golden Gay is here, John Golden Gay, he was a
Yeah,
poet.
sure.
And then there were a few more. I think we can do the top on the list. The Psalms commentators.
Yeah.
So, who is your most close interlocutor
Yeah.
for your commentary?
Yeah. Well, there's no one interlocutor. Everyone from Brueggemann to Westermann, they're all Western scholars, I have to admit. And I am moving towards branching out into more Eastern-based scholarship, like how Asians incorporate the Psalms in their own worship. I have particular affinity with Koreans because many Koreans are Presbyterians,
Yes.
like me as well. But I also I have a graduate student who is Palestinian Jordanian, and she is in our class at Columbia Seminary, and I've had wonderful conversations with her, who wants to translate the Psalms in a new Arabic translation, among other things. And so we're engaging in conversation how the Psalms are used in her context, in her Arabic Eastern context of Eastern Orthodoxy.
Well, thank you very much. You know, it's a daunting task because 150 Psalm means it's a lifetime work.
Yes.
And so Dr. Bill Brown is ranking himself, starting, if we start from Luther and then Calvin and coming down toward the Western, we will talk few names like Brueggemann and also Golden Gate and all these in contemporary. So who is the audience or the readership you are imagining?
So that's a great question. For the OTL series, it's pastors and scholars, and students as well of the Psalms. And so it's to bring the best of academic scholarship to a way that impacts the church and the life of faith. And so it's a bridge builder commentary.
Wonderful.
From the guild to the church. Yeah.
And you said that you have a Korean and also Palestinian, student.
Yes.
Translating
that's
Palestinian conversation.
Right, conversation partner.
So this could be a kind of a critical question.
Yeah.
Mostly around the world, since there is an influence of a Western theological perspective through seminaries and through writings, through commentaries, it's already Western influence, whether it's a Korea, whether it's a Pakistan, whether it's a Palestine, whatever.
Yes.
How you see that it will be impacting or in a conversation with the contextual theology compared to Western, Is there any kind of nugget or something for which link with the contextual theology?
Yeah.
Any country you imagine that would be part of that?
Yeah. So when I talk about the Psalms in dialogue or the Psalms in context, I want to talk about their ancient Near Eastern context. And so I'm in conversation with other ancient texts, whether Egyptian, Mesopotamian, Ugaritic, and the like. So there's that ancient contextual component that I want to bring into the conversation. I want to bring in the literary component, why Psalm 19 is positioned between Psalms 18 and 20, and what they contribute to each other dialogically and theologically. So there's that context as well. But I also want to talk about contemporary context too, how the Psalms are used in worship. And I admit that my own context is Western, it is Reformed, it is Presbyterian, but I want to be in conversation with Presbyterians around the world, including Korea, including Pakistan.
Well, it will be an honor.
Yeah, so I want to keep in contact with you, Eric.
Well, thank you.
And to read your book that's coming out.
Well, I have a more missiological component. It's not theological, but it's a missiological. It's kind of a using a new approach, reading psalm and singing. I'm a musician,
All right.
So I'm more going to how you use ethnomusicology, using your cultural context, music culture, to compose these poems, ancient poems, using, like if in India is a local raga base.
Yes.
Just like we have a Psalm 9 superscripture for the doe of the dawn, and the Moth Libin, or the Aleph Hasher, all the superscripture. What are these actually, and how these, this morning somebody asked you about the superscripture, the church musicians,
Yes,
the choir master,
to the music leader.
To the music leader, yes.
Yeah.
So my role is seeing and framing these ones.
Okay.
these psalms and putting into a local music culture, using whether India, Raga-based, Palestine, Middle Eastern Maqam system, and whatever the local music genres are there, how you can compose them, and then using them for speak to your own culture. That's a piece, but I think we are talking about your upcoming book. So, by the way,
okay.
yeah.
I want to hear about yours too.
So we would like to encourage you to read this book. It's a profound, I can sense that one. It will be a gift to the scholarly community, but also to the students, but as well as to the pastors, and a fresh resource. So, when it's coming?
So it'll be probably another 2 years from now. I'm finishing up the manuscript. It'll be the Psalms commentary in the Old Testament Library series. It actually replaces an old commentary, the old commentary by Arthur Weiser.
Okay.
That was published back in 1962 or so. So it's time to succeed it, to replace it.
And who's publishing it?
So this is Westminster John Knox.
Okay.
Presbyterian
Publishers. Okay.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
And your book is being published by
Fortress.
That's right, Fortress.
Yes, Fortress.
I will look forward to it.
Sure. So,
Yeah.
by the way, my book's name is Psalms, Islam, and Shalom. This is the book, actually. You have to find out, or you can search my name. Mine comes next month, August, and we are looking forward eagerly to read Dr. Bill's book and the commentary. And obviously, I will encourage our students in Pakistan, wherever you are, and around the world, people, those who can understand, speak, and read English. Please, looking forward to that book. Dr. Bill, such a pleasure.
Eric, it's been a pleasure
with
to you. Thank you.
Likewise,
Thank
thank you
you.
very much. And credits to our camera person. Would you say something?
I'm happy to be here and be a part of this conversation. Thank you. It's an honor.
I moved this camera like a bit to show your face. It's such a brilliant job you have did. I know it's not easy holding a camera, but here is our camera person here. Okay.
Mindy.
Okay, Mandy.
Mindy, yes.
Oh, thank you, Mandy.